Hi, welcome to Business Time. I am Melisha. Guess what? We are going to be looking at the May-June 2021 Principles of Business Paper 2. Now, because the exam date was pushed back, it was actually done on July 15. So let's get right into it. Oh, by the way, remember, if you have not yet subscribed, you need to subscribe, like, and share. Thank you. Now let's look at the first question. 1A. It says, list 4 instruments of exchange. Now, possible answer for this question could be things like bills of exchange, checks, money order, debit cards, and other instruments of exchange that you could use are like electronic transfer, credit card, bank draft. All right, so you only need to list and you'll get the 1 mark for each instrument that you list. 1B says, outline 2 ways in which money facilitates trade in the modern economy. Think about it. All right, let's look at some possible answers. One is able to easily get what he wants without having to find someone who has what he wants and wants what he has. So there's no issue for double coincidence of wants anymore. All right, money just helps you to just pay for what it is that you want. Also, money places value on goods, and so one will not have to worry about unequal exchange. Sometimes with bartering, you may exchange something that is worth a little bit more than what you're getting for it, right? But money really helps for trading to be easy, right? So you just use your money to pay for what the good is worth. And for outlining each way, you get 2 marks each. Let's now look at C. C says, state 2 characteristics of each of the following types of businesses or sole traders. The first one is sole proprietorships or sole traders. Think about it. All right. So, characteristics of a sole proprietorship: only one owner is in the business. Another characteristic is that it has unlimited liability. Other characteristics could be things like it's easy to start and it requires small amount of capital to set up. All right. So, what are some characteristics of a public limited company now? You're required to state 2 characteristics of public limited companies. Think about it. All right, let's go. So possible answers could be 1, it can have many owners or shareholders. 2, it has limited liability. And other characteristic that you could put is that anyone can buy shares in a public limited company. So the next form of business we're going to be looking at is cooperatives. What are 2 characteristics of cooperatives? Can you think of any? All right, let's get into it. So 2 characteristics are that 1, it's owned by its members. 2, it has limited liability. Other characteristics could be things like profits are shared among the members. So if you listed all the characteristics correctly, you would have gotten 2 marks for each form of business, right? So 1 mark for each characteristic that is listed. Excellent. So the next question, D, it says, explain 3 ways in which businesses in a free market economy operate when compared to businesses in a planned economy. Can you think of any? Let's look at some of the possible answers for D. 1. Businesses in the free economy are free to do what they want, as they would not have the government dictating what type of goods they can sell and so on, like in a planned economy, where the government dictates what type of goods are to be sold. Businesses in the free economy depend on demand and supply. If goods are not demanded by consumers, then businesses will have to sell other goods. However, in the planned economy, businesses sell what the government wants them to sell. Another possible answer could be that businesses in the free economy aim to make as much profit as they can, which is not usually so in the planned economy. In the planned economy, there is greater equality to ensure that consumers get what is needed and not necessarily to make a lot of profit. All right. Question 2A says, identify 4 potential sources of conflict within the workplace. Can you identify any? Now let's look at what some potential sources are, and you're just required to list them. All right, and you get 1 mark each. So potential sources are like poor communication, unfair treatment, poor management, and competition for scarce resources. All right, 2B says, list 4 actions that employees may take to gain the upper hand during periods of conflict. Can you think of any? All right, let's look at what 4 actions could be. Strike, work to rule, go slow, and overtime ban, and you get 1 mark for each correct answer. C says, describe each of the following strategies that may be used in the resolution of conflict in the workplace. The first one is grievance procedure. Anybody knows what that is? Let's look what grievance procedure is. These are regulations that outline the procedure that must be followed to resolve a conflict within an organization. For example, an employee should speak with their supervisor before bringing the issue to a senior manager. So there are rules and regulations that must be followed. All right. So, for example, you're in your schools. If there's an issue, you don't just bring the issue to the principal first, right? You either speak to your grade coordinator or the HOD. You just follow certain guidelines that governs how conflicts are dealt with or should be dealt with. All right. The second one is mediation. Anybody remembers what mediation is? Let's look at mediation. Mediation, this is when a third party or a mediator is brought in to try to resolve the issue. Now, the advice of the mediator is just a suggestion and does not have to be followed by both parties, right? Now, the next one is arbitration. Who remembers what arbitration is about? Well, Let's look at arbitration. So this is when a third party, or the who we can call the arbitrator, is brought in to try to resolve the issue. Both parties have to do what the arbitrator recommends, which is so different from the mediator, where the parties do not have to follow what the mediator says. However, whatever the arbitrator says must go. All right, let's look at D. It says explain two strategies that may be adopted by management to build good relationships between management and staff in the workplace. Think about it. All right, so let's look at two possible strategies. The first one, good communication with workers. Managers need to be able to clearly and effectively communicate with workers so that they fully understand what is expected of them. This, of course, will help to eliminate any confusion that could arise. The second one is improve working conditions. When managers care enough about the work environment to fix it and to make sure it's appropriate for persons to work in, it will definitely help to improve the relations with their staff. Now we are at question 3. 3A says, distinguish between the subsistence level of production and the domestic level of production. Subsistence production is when just enough is produced to meet one's basic needs. People usually provide goods and services for themselves and families. However, in domestic production, goods and services are provided for the local market. Enough is produced so the entire country, right, can get these goods. 3B says, list 3 characteristics of cottage industries. All right, so some characteristics could be things like it is usually home based, it is labor intensive, and it is usually done on a small scale. Let's look at C1. State 3 functions of small businesses in rural communities. All right, so small businesses provide goods and services that large businesses may not want to provide in rural communities. Like you see you would not see a large supermarket in some rural communities. So the little shops are the ones that help them to get the goods that they need. Secondly, small businesses can provide customized service for rural communities. Think about it. Like if you were to go to a supermarket, you would not necessarily get to buy half of a bread. However, in a rural community, the small businesses, of course, those little shops, they will sell half of a bread, quarter of a bread, you name it. All right, the third one is that small businesses create employment. Let's look at the C2. State 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages of small businesses. All right, so some advantages could be that it provides employment and it maintains good relationships with customers. A disadvantage would be lack expertise in certain areas, and it's difficult to get financing. All right, let's look at B's question. It says the owner of a small manufacturing business is considering expanding her firm. Explain 2 possible effects the firm's growth may have on the internal operations of the business. Think about it. All right. So let's look at some. The first one is that the organization structure will expand with more people employed to meet increased demand. There could be a wider span of control and the creation of more functional areas to ensure that the business runs smoothly. Secondly, the business will have the potential to gain more capital. Additional machinery, equipment, fixtures, and fittings can be acquired from investors. And also, other things could be more labor will need to be employed, greater need for more technology, and greater ability to export. 4A says, define each of the following forms of technology used in business. You have e-commerce. Anybody remembers what e-commerce is? Well, this is the buying and selling of goods or services online using the internet, of course, and the transfer of money and data to execute these transactions. So the main thing is that it is the buying and selling of goods and services online. Now, global positioning system, GPS, who knows what that is? Now, GPS is a navigation system that helps people to know their exact position or location using satellites while traveling via air, sea, and land. It navigates one's travel, tracks movement of objects or persons, and so on. And GPS, of course, is a common thing that we use a lot today. All right, B says, list 4 activities involved in supply chain operations. All right, you have the transformation of natural resources, movement and storage of raw materials, processing of raw materials and components into finished goods, and storage of work in progress and finished goods. Okay, let's look at C. It says, outline 3 advantages of supply chain operations to a firm. All right, let's look at the first one. It allows firms to be able to create new and innovative services. Firms will be able to expand their services such as warehousing, transportation, and so on. Second one is that there will be better flow of goods and raw materials as more efficient ways are found for deliveries to be done on time. Firms are therefore in a better position to get goods delivered on time. And that is important for a business to be successful. The third thing is that there is better collaboration among firms as the integration of software solutions have helped for the seamless sharing of information among firms in the supply chain. As a result, firms are able to make informed decisions. Let's look at D. Explain 2 ways in which logistics could improve the competitiveness of a business. All right, the first thing is that it helps businesses to efficiently meet the demands of customers. Businesses will be able to choose between alternatives whether to source the best quality raw material at lowest cost or choose an efficient transportation company and so on. It helps businesses to cut costs and be in a position to compete amongst the best in the industry. A second one is that businesses can have a competitive advantage where it outperforms its competitors, as it may be able to source cheaper raw material or sell better quality products, etc., which will lead to more customers. Now we're on to the final question. 5A. List 4 social services which are provided by a government for the citizens of its country. Can you think of any? All right. You have things like national insurance, free healthcare, free or subsidized education, and proper road and transport. Like other things like, we have the PATH program here in Jamaica, where poor families get money that's transferred to them, or they get, money to help with their expenses. B says outline 2 responsibilities of a government to its citizens. Now, the first one, security of the state. This is where the government provides protection for the country through its security forces, such as the police force, or some persons you have like in Jamaica, we have the Jamaica Defense Force, or JDF, right? And the second thing is protection of the environment. Yes, so the government is to put measures in place to ensure that the environment is protected, such as laws banning certain activities that will damage the environment. Just like the other day in Jamaica, plastic bags were banned. So when people are going shopping now to the supermarket or wherever, to the stores, they have to bring their rewashable bags, their cloth bags, and we no longer use plastics. 5C says, discuss 3 ways in which governments may assist in the development of the local business sector. First thing, the government can provide subsidies and grants to help businesses. This will help businesses to not have to bear the full cost of production, thus giving them a competitive edge, A second thing is that the government can provide research and information centers where businesses can get up-to-date information to support new developments. Businesses can get information from these centers that will help them to improve. The third one is that the government can provide training facilities to develop the human resource of the country. This will help businesses to be able to get the skilled or professional workers that they are looking for. Yes. The final question, D. Education could be considered one of the great growth industries of developing economies. Explain 2 ways in which education could contribute to economic growth in the Caribbean region. All right, let's look at the responses for 5D. Education will allow persons to be better at what they do, which will cause persons to work more efficiently. It will make them more flexible to adapt to changes. This will cause for greater output in business, thus resulting in increased economic growth. The second one is that there could also likely be more entrepreneurs who will start their own businesses. This will lead to innovation of new technology or products that will aid in business development and increase the level of production within the country. All right, so that is it. I hope you learned something. See you next time.